Ever get the feeling you're chasing a ghost from your past? Like if you just reach back and grab it, everything would click into place. That's Gatsby in a nutshell.
Yeah.
We're diving into F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby today. But forget the flapper dresses and champagne fountains for a second.
Right.
We're going deeper than the glitz to uncover why this story still hits us right in the feels almost 100 years later.
You're spot on. Those iconic images are just the surface.
Yeah.
You mentioned wanting to understand why it's considered a classic. It's because Fitzgerald captures something universally human, that longing for a past we can never truly recapture.
Right, and you sent over some really interesting articles and notes about the book.
Yeah.
So for anyone who hasn't cracked it open since high school, we're talking 1920s Long Island. A young guy named Nick Carraway narrating the whole thing. He gets swept up in the orbit of Jay Gatsby, this mysterious millionaire who throws these insane parties. But it's clear Gatsby's got his sights set on something, or someone else, Daisy Buchanan.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
See, even Nick, who's pretty level-headed, gets sucked into the Gatsby vortex at first. The parties, the music, the sheer extravagance, it's intoxicating. But remember how Nick describes feeling a sense of unease? Like something darker lurks beneath the surface? Fitzgerald uses that feeling to pull us into the story?
Oh, totally. It's like those perfectly frosted cakes. They look tempting, but who knows what's really inside?
Right.
And speaking of appearances not being what they seem, let's talk about Daisy. Fitzgerald famously describes her voice as being full of money. But is that all she is?
Right.
Gatsby dedicates his life to reuniting with her. Is she actually worth it?
That line about Daisy's voice is so crucial because it reveals how Gatsby sees her as the embodiment of everything he craves. Old money, status, a past he's desperate to reclaim.
Wow.
Daisy's not really a person to him, but a symbol of this unattainable dream. And Fitzgerald masterfully uses her to highlight a common human flaw, projecting our desires onto others, turning them into something they're not. Remember Daisy's reaction to Gatsby's mountain of shirts? The text says she cries, but are those tears genuine, or is she performing what she thinks is expected? Then there's her indifference to the hit and run, letting Gatsby take the fall. It's chilling.
Okay, well, you're right. But on the one hand, you have Gatsby, this self-made millionaire, throwing these over-the-top parties.
Right.
On the other, he's almost childlike in his earnestness, especially with Nick. He shows Nick a picture of himself at Oxford, a medal from Montenegro.
Did Gatsby actually buy into his own lies, or was it more complex than that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of what makes Gatsby so fascinating.
Yeah.
He embodies both the allure and the danger of the American dream, this idea that you can create yourself from nothing.
Right.
He truly believes that by accumulating wealth, crafting this almost theatrical persona, he can win Daisy back.
It's like he's built his entire life on a gamble, betting everything on a past that can't be replayed.
Precisely. And Fitzgerald gives us this gut punch moment when Gatsby's dad shows Nick his son's old schedule. Study electricity, practice elocution. It's heartbreaking because you see this young Gatsby so hungry to improve himself, and you realize how tragically off course his life becomes in pursuit of an illusion.
And looming over all this is the billboard with Dr. T.J. Eckelberg's giant, unseeing eyes.
Right.
It's such a bizarre, unsettling image. What was Fitzgerald going for there?
Those eyes are Fitzgerald's masterstroke. They're like an X-ray into the character's souls. Remember, the billboard overlooks the Valley of Ashes, this desolate wasteland between West Egg, New Money, Gatsby, and East Egg, Old Money, the Buchanans.
Right.
Those eyes see the moral decay, the spiritual emptiness beneath the Roaring Twenties facade, but the characters are blind to it, especially Tom and Daisy.
And that contrast between West Egg and East Egg is so important. It's not just about different zip codes. It's about those age-old tensions between new money and old money, ambition and entitlement.
Exactly. Gatsby, for all his wealth, is still an outsider in Daisy's world. He's trying to buy his way into a social circle that sees him as nouveau riche,
Right.
a pretender to the throne.
Yeah.
Tom Buchanan, on the other hand, embodies that inherited privilege, and he sees right through Gatsby.
Tom's the worst.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, why do you think Fitzgerald gave us a character like Tom? He's so unlikable.
Because Tom's unlikableness serves a crucial purpose.
Okay.
He's not just a jealous husband. He represents the ugliness that lurks beneath the surface of this gilded age.
Yeah.
He's threatened by Gatsby's ambition, yes, but also by the possibility that Daisy might actually choose a self-made man over someone born into wealth.
Right.
Tom needs Gatsby to be a fraud because it justifies his own sense of superiority.
It's like he's threatened by the idea that the American dream might actually be attainable for someone like Gatsby.
Right.
Which, of course, makes Gatsby's downfall even more tragic.
Exactly.
He's not just destroyed by his love for Daisy. He's crushed by the weight of societal expectations, of classism that he can't outrun or outspend.
Absolutely. And that's why Gatsby's death, shot down in his own pool, is so symbolic.
Yeah.
It's this stark reminder that the American dream, as seductive as it may seem, can also be a brutal illusion.
Speaking of illusions, let's go back to Daisy for a minute.
Okay.
She's gorgeous. She's got that mesmerizing voice.
Right.
But she's also incredibly passive. Like, she pines for Gatsby.
Yeah.
But she never actually takes a stand for their love.
That's the tragedy of Daisy, isn't it? She's a prisoner of her own privilege. She wants passion, excitement, the kind of love story Gatsby represents, but she's too afraid to risk losing her lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's telling that she cries over Gatsby's shirts, these symbols of his wealth and devotion, but she ultimately chooses the safety and security of her marriage to Tom.
She's kind of the ultimate Gatsby creation, isn't she? This projection of a perfect past that never really existed.
Exactly. And that's why their reunion, while electric, is also doomed from the start. They're both clinging to a fantasy, and reality can only disappoint.
Yeah.
Remember that line about beating on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past?
Yeah.
That's Gatsby trying to recapture something that's gone forever.
You know, you mentioned that line is one of the reasons this book has resonated for almost a century.
Right.
But I think it's more than just the words, right? It's that feeling Fitzgerald evokes.
Right.
Like, haven't we all tried to recapture a moment, a feeling from our past, only to realize we can't go back?
Exactly. That's why The Great Gatsby is more than just a tragic romance. It's a mirror reflecting our own longing for lost loves, lost time, lost innocence.
Right.
And it reminds us that while it's human nature to romanticize the past, fixating on it can keep us from living fully in the present.
And who better to remind us of that than Nick Carraway, our narrator?
Yeah.
He starts out totally starstruck by Gatsby, but by the end, he's the one who sees the truth.
Nick's journey is crucial because he acts as a stand-in for the reader. He's initially seduced by the glamour of Gatsby's world, but as he gets closer, he sees the cracks in the facade. Think about how differently Nick views those parties by the end of the book. They've gone from symbols of excitement and possibility to emblems of emptiness and despair.
It's like he's saying, be careful what you wish for, because the reality might just break your heart.
Right.
And that's such a powerful message even today.
Yeah.
We live in a world obsessed with appearances, with social media, with curating the perfect image.
Right.
But The Great Gatsby reminds us that true connection, genuine happiness, can't be bought or fabricated.
Precisely. And that's why Nick's final act, sending out those telegrams for Gatsby's sparsely attended funeral, is so heartbreaking.
Oh, wow.
He's the only one who truly sees Gatsby for who he was, flaws and all.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes the people we think are surrounded by crowds are the ones who are most alone.
It's like that saying, you want to know who your real friends are? Die. Okay, morbid, but I get your point. Gatsby surrounded himself with partygoers, but in the end, it was Nick, this quiet observer, who showed up for him.
And that speaks volumes about the difference between fleeting connections and genuine relationships. Gatsby craved validation, belonging, but he sought it in all the wrong places. Material possessions, lavish parties, the approval of people who didn't truly care.
It's like he built a golden cage for himself, and all the money in the world couldn't buy him real happiness. Which makes me think about that green light at the end of Daisy's dock. It's one of the most iconic symbols in literature. What do you make of it?
The green light is brilliant because it represents so much. Gatsby's yearning for Daisy, yes, but also the allure of the unattainable, the seductive power of our own desires. It's that thing we fixate on, believing it holds the key to our happiness when in reality it's often an illusion.
So what you're saying is we all have our own green lights. Those things we chase after, convinced they'll complete us.
Absolutely. And like Gatsby, we sometimes lose sight of what truly matters in pursuit of them. We chase careers, possessions, relationships, taught in the cycle of desire and disappointment. The genius of The Great Gatsby is that it forces us to confront our own green lights.
And to ask ourselves, what are we sacrificing in pursuit of them? Are we so busy chasing an illusion that we're missing out on the beauty and meaning in our lives right now? I mean, Gatsby's story is a tragedy, but it's also a cautionary tale, right? It's a reminder to check our own ambitions, to make sure we're not building our lives on a foundation of sand.
Exactly. And to remember that happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of being present and engaged in the journey.
Gatsby's tragedy reminds us that true fulfillment comes from connection, authenticity, and appreciating the present moment.
So the next time we find ourselves fixated on that metaphorical green light, it might be a good time to step back and ask ourselves, what's really driving me? And is this chase leading me towards a life of substance and meaning? Or am I heading for a Gatsby-esque crash and burn?
That's the question, isn't it? And perhaps the most enduring legacy of The Great Gatsby is its ability to spark that kind of self-reflection, to remind us that the most meaningful journeys are often the ones that lead us inward towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Wow, I think we just cracked the code of The Great Gatsby. Seriously, this deep dive has given me a whole new appreciation for Fitzgerald's masterpiece. It's more than just a love story. It's a mirror reflecting our own longings, our aspirations, our very human capacity for both greatness and self-destruction.
It truly is. And it's a book that stays with you long after you finish the last page, prompting you to ask those big, important questions about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder your own green lights. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into The Great Gatsby.